Hi, this is Joel Johnson, Certified Financial Planner, and I'm the Managing Partner at Johnson Brunetti. And today we want to talk about retiring early. We get so many questions from our viewers of, can I retire early? What do I need to make sure of? What checklists do I need to make sure that I've got in place? What items of importance do I need to make sure that I've checked the boxes off of so that I can retire early? Because really, what is retirement when you think about it? Now, when you think about retiring early and what is retirement, people think about money right away. I would suggest there's a lot of other things we're going to talk about today, in addition to the money part of it, that are really, really important to think through. So that's our subject for today. Can I retire early? Now, if you're getting ready to retire and you've been with a company for a long time, or maybe you've been with a company for a short period of time, but you've been with other companies, one of the things you want to think about is, are there benefits to an early retirement or doing part-time work? And what are some of the benefits available from the company that you used to work for? So is there a way that I could retire early and maybe not quite totally retire? Should I be doing some part-time work? You know, we've had engineers that work for Raytheon, that have worked for Raytheon for 25, 30 years, and then they go and retire and they go work for Home Depot because they were handy people. They loved working, you know, around the house. They loved building things. And so in a sense, they're working because they want to. Yes, they pick up some extra income, but they're working because they want to, not because they have to. So some of the benefits of an early retirement could be a lifestyle situation where, you know, you don't want to stay at the same job. You can afford to retire, but you have this idea that you can leave the main job that you've been at for a long, long time, pick up some part-time work to get some fulfillment. But again, it comes down to, you know, what do you really want? What do you want your retirement to look like? And what we tell people to do is to sit back and sort of take a blank piece of paper and just start to write. Write what your dream retirement looks like. Pretend money didn't matter and just forget about the money. We'll worry about the money in a second here, but forget about the money and maybe even want to stop this and say, what does my dream retirement look like? You know, where do I want to live? How much do I want to travel? Who are the people that I want to hang out with? What are the organizations I want to be involved with, and so on? So, you know, yes, there are definitely benefits to an early retirement. There are definitely benefits to part-time work. It really has to fall into this picture that you have of your dream retirement. Now, obviously, we have to think about financial considerations. And I'm going to talk about two areas of financial considerations here. I'm going to talk about financial considerations as far as your own finances, but also what about your dependents? What about other people that are dependent upon you? So let's talk about your own situation for a minute. You want to make sure you have a good retirement income plan. You want to make sure that that retirement income plan is built based on you needing income, being able to pay for health care, being able to give yourself raises over the course of your life, which means you probably want to sit down with a professional. Some of you can do this on your own, but for the most part, people use professionals to figure out where's their income going to come from, how much do they need, what order of income should they take from different accounts and so on, which account should I drain first, and so on. So that's a big financial consideration of, can you retire early? You need a really good financial plan. And then what about dependents? Wendy and I have kids. We also have 2 grandkids. We have nieces and nephews. We care about education a lot. And so maybe we want to be available to help with children's education with nieces and nephews and so on that maybe couldn't afford to send themselves to school or their parents can't afford it. So what are some of those other considerations of people that you're not necessarily obligated to, but you want to help out? So you want to think about all those things, again, when it comes to retiring early. And can you retire early? So again, we're talking about things that are not just your financial considerations, but other things that are in the areas of that touch your money, let's say. What about staying active and engaged? One of the things that we see, and we don't see it so much with our clients, but we hear about it and so on. And I've had friends where, you know, somebody retires and they become less active, they become less engaged. Maybe they lose their sense of connection because they worked in one place and developed deep friendships. And even though you say you're going to keep in touch with people, it doesn't always work out that way. So sometimes you see health go downhill because people haven't stayed active and engaged in some kind of communities that they care about and so on. So again, you want to make sure that you have a plan for staying active and engaged. It could mean that you start completely different and new endeavors in your life, or it could mean you become more involved in areas that you're already involved in. We've had people go do volunteer work. Like I said earlier, we've had people go do part-time work. But how are you going to stay active and engaged? Because it's when people lose connection that they start to suffer from a health standpoint. And again, kind of going along with this is pursuing passions and hobbies. Do you have a hobby that you want to get involved in? Do you have a hobby that you're already involved in, but you don't have the time? Maybe you'd rather play golf 3 times a week or 4 times a week than only once every month. Maybe it's pickleball, which is all the rage right now. But what are some of those passions and hobbies, organizations that you might want to get involved with so that you can stay active and engaged? The importance of social connection, I can't say enough about. I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about, them considering moving their mom back up to the Northeast from Florida. Their mom had lived down in Florida for a long period of time, and she's getting to the point where she just can't take care of herself anymore. They're worried about fall risks. They're worried about things like that. And one of the things I pointed out is we've seen this happen with clients when they've moved parents out of a community they've been in for a long, long time and into a completely different geographic area. For the parents' safety, we think we're protecting them and they shouldn't be home alone and so on and so forth. Many times health starts to go downhill, and it's because of those social connections. So what is our plan, again, for social connections in retirement? How are we going to stay engaged? And then we've got, obviously, the health impacts. You can't cheat father time. We get older, our joints work differently, we develop other issues. Many of us have in our family histories. We might have heart situations or potential diabetes or just other things that we don't have as much control over as we'd like. So if you retire early, what's the health and wellness impact going to be? Now, for some people, they retire early and all of a sudden they're much more committed to fitness and a good nutrition regimen. But we want you to think that through. We want you to really think that through and make sure that you're in a position where instead of just pulling the trigger and saying, hey, I can financially retire, I'll be great, I've got plenty of money, I'll never run out of money and so on. What about some of these other items that we've talked about? And then, of course, there comes a time, and I turned 62 earlier this year, and Wendy and I have saved a lot of money. We've always lived way below our means. So now some of the things that we're thinking about is what's the legacy we want to leave? Where do we want to spend or give away our money? Do we want to leave a bunch of money to our kids, or do we want to just leave them enough to enhance their lives but not leave them where they're all set? What's that legacy we want to leave? If we have a giving strategy, and of course this is after you figured out you've got more than you need, but if we have a giving strategy, do we want to give where we get our name on a hospital somewhere or something like that, or do we want to do quiet type of giving? Do we want to do spontaneous giving and so on? So what's that legacy? And I will tell you, in being in this business now since 1989, and for the last 20 years specializing in people that are retired or getting close to retirement and watching them go through their 60s and their 70s and their 80s, this legacy, this stamp sort of on your tombstone of what people are going to remember you for becomes more and more and more important. The more money somebody has, for the most part, the more they think about this legacy and this fulfillment and this purpose. And so that's another area that you're going to end up thinking about, probably not when you're trying to figure out if you can retire early, but probably down the line from that. So let's just talk about the bullet points and kind of review very quickly what I've talked about so far. And overall, again, we're talking about can I retire early, but I'm introducing different subjects to you that are more than just the finance part. So let's just hit these one at a time. Are there benefits to an early retirement? Can I retire early and do part-time work? And some of the benefits or some of the answers to that will be, yeah, absolutely. If you forget about the financial piece of it, maybe you want something new in your 50s and 60s. Maybe you want to explore an area that you've never worked in before. Maybe you want to work in an area where you can travel a lot more. You can work with your hands and you've worked in an office the whole time. So, look at that when you think about can you retire early? Obviously, financial considerations. Who's dependent on me? Is it a spouse? Is it a family member? Is it an obligation that I have? Maybe a debt I took on that's not paid off yet. So what are those financial considerations? And here I can't stress enough, you need to have a good financial plan. In my opinion, it should be done by a professional, and that professional should be somebody that specializes in retirement. There are a lot of professionals that are very, very good at growing money and growing wealth for somebody that's hit it big, that's owned a business, that maybe got wealthy in their 30s and 40s. But retirement is different. There are emotional things that happen in retirement. So if you're going to go through the financial considerations for retirement, if you're within 5 years of retirement or you're already retired, I would suggest that if you decide to work with a financial professional, which not everybody needs to, but most people probably should, then you should work with somebody that specializes in retirement, and you should work with somebody that specializes in people like you. And then, of course, staying active and engaged, pursuing passions and hobbies, so important. The importance of social connection. I think there's a huge correlation. In my experience being in this business and helping thousands of retirees, there's a huge correlation between physical health and social connection. I don't think any of us would deny that when we think about it. And then health and wellness impacts, what's that going to have? And then what about that legacy? Which again, that legacy part typically hits you hard when you figure out that you've got much more than you need, more than you're going to spend in retirement. And you think about, how am I going to be remembered? But it might hit you as early as when you're considering early retirement, which could be, in your late 50s, early 60s. So these are the things that I wanted to share with you about today. We're here to help you in any way that we can at Johnson Brunetti. You can go to our website, johnsonbrunetti.com. There are tons of resources on our website, tons of free information that you can get. Nobody's going to call you. Nobody's going to bother you. As you know, because you're probably familiar with us from all our TV appearances and our radio program, all the free seminars that we do and the educational events that we do. As you know, we're here to educate first. If somebody wants to raise their hand and visit with us one-on-one, that's great. But that's not the purpose of this particular video segment. The purpose of this video segment is to give you things to think about so you can have a much higher quality retirement. So once again, I'm Joel Johnson, managing partner at Johnson Brunetti. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. We are here to help in any way possible. Just go to johnsonbrunetti.com.